Welcome back to the deep dive. So, if you're a serious English learner, you know the feeling. That frustration. It's like hitting a brick wall. You can read, complex articles, you crush every grammar test you take. Maybe you even scored really high on one of those standardized exams. But then you step into a real conversation, a native speaker starts talking quickly, and they hit you with something like, "What should I do about it?" And suddenly all that knowledge, it just disappears. Your brain freezes.
Yeah, that moment of truth where all the textbook knowledge just evaporates.
Hmm.
That's exactly what our source material is tackling today. Our mission is pretty clear. We need to bridge that enormous gap, the gap between recognizing written English and having the confidence for instant, real-time communication.
I love that analogy I've heard you use before. It's like reading and writing skills get you a driver's license,
Right.
but they don't teach you how to navigate rush hour traffic.
Exactly. And that's what a real conversation is. It's a rush hour.
So we're deep diving into the why. Why this gap even exists. I mean, why is real spoken English so fundamentally different from what we learn in a classroom? It's fast, it's reduced, it's full of idioms, slang, connected speech.
And global accents. Don't forget the accents.
Of course. So how do we translate that slow, careful classroom understanding into something confident, instantaneous?
Well, if we look at the research, the difference is just stark. It confirms that native speakers simply don't talk the way language learning apps teach you. They interrupt, they use idioms that make zero literal sense, they break grammar rules all the time in daily conversation.
Okay, so to fix it, we have to dissect the problem first.
We have to. And we need to start with the linguistic shortcuts, the things that create those sound patterns that just feel so unfamiliar.
Okay, let's unpack this. The mechanics of sound. It's not just that native speakers talk fast, it's that they drastically reduce and combine words. We mentioned gonna for going to.
Wanna for want to, water for what are you?
And this isn't laziness, right? It's about efficiency.
It's all about efficiency. And the sources are really emphatic about this. Speed is a red herring.
Our red herring.
The real challenge isn't the words per minute. It's the radically unfamiliar sound patterns. And this is because English is what linguists call a stress-timed language.
What does that mean exactly? A stress-timed language.
It means that instead of giving every single syllable equal time, we emphasize certain key syllables, usually the content words like nouns and verbs, and then everything else around them gets dramatically, reduced. Those unstressed syllables often lose their true vowel sound, and they become the infamous schwa sound, that little sound.
Ah, the schwa. So if I learn the word about really slowly, focusing on the a and the ow sounds, but a native speaker just says about with that mushy schwa sound, my brain, it just doesn't register it as the same word, even if I know the vocabulary.
Precisely. You've learned the word visually, but you haven't learned it orally. The schwa is the engine of all that reduction. And then we compound this with the sound puzzle of connected speech, co-articulation. This is where words physically link up.
Give us some of those examples again, the really tricky ones.
Okay, so we heard did you become did you. Another classic one is next stop, which can sound like next stop. The tint just gets dropped. Or think about put it on. That can almost sound like put it on. The tint blend into the vowels.
And if you're only trained to hear those words in isolation, these linked phrases, they sound like a completely new language.
Exactly. If a learner is just relying on slow educational videos, or, and this is a big one, always uses subtitles, they just aren't building the sound dictionary they need to handle this stuff.
And the sources really highlight the huge psychological part of this. Even when you do recognize the sounds, you can still freeze.
Yeah.
Spoken English becomes this psychological battle. You know the grammar, but the fear of making a mistake, low confidence, overthinking it.
Or just comparing yourself to the person you're talking to.
Right. And your brain just locks up.
That mental block is what prevents that instantaneous recall even when the memory is there.
Yeah.
But let's shift to the sheer cognitive load of just listening. It's the foundation for everything else.
You mean your brain is doing way too many calculations in far too little time?
Way too many. Think about it. In less than half a second, your brain has to decode the sounds, group them into words, apply grammar, grasp the meaning, infer the speaker's tone, apply context,
And start formulating a response.
and start thinking about what you're going to say next. If any one of those steps fails, like if the sounds are reduced with gunja, the decoding fails, and the whole system just collapses.
That real-time processing is what slows everything down. I might know the written word dictionary, but if I hear the British pronunciation, like dictionary, my brain has to spend those extra milliseconds mapping that new sound to the word I already know.
And that mapping process is everything. That's what we mean by building your sound dictionary. It's connecting the sound, the word, its meaning, and its usage. And that takes a huge amount of auditory exposure, much longer than it takes to just memorize a definition from a book.
And then you throw the accents into the mix.
Oh, the accent gauntlet, yeah.
If you've only ever heard, say, a clear American accent, and then you're hit with a rapid-fire Scottish accent or even a nuanced non-native accent.
The whole system can just break down again. Familiarity is the key. English is a global language now. You've got American, British, Australian, South African, Indian, dozens of accents.
So what's fascinating here is when you list all those tasks your brain is doing at once, decoding, recognizing, guessing, predicting, Andy trying to think of a reply, it becomes so clear why you get tired.
It's an elite mental marathon. And that brings us to the other side of the coin, moving from passive understanding to active speaking.
Right. Why reading novels and watching movies doesn't automatically mean you can speak well.
It's that muscle analogy again, which we see in all the sources. Language is a muscle. It requires active recall, not just passive recognition.
You have to pull the words from memory instantly, under pressure.
And this is where the big speaking difficulties show up. The number one thing that slows people down is the habit of translating in their head.
Oh, that's a killer. You hear English, translate to your language, think of a reply in your language, translate it back to English.
By the time you're ready to speak, the conversation has moved on. It just guarantees halting, error-filled speech.
And then there's the other big one. I just don't know what to say. You have the words, but not the templates, the structures.
Right. Because conversation is multitasking.
Yeah.
You're listening, understanding, building a response, speaking, self-correcting, all at once. It's impossible if you're also translating.
So this is why learners say things like, I understand videos, but not real life.
Because videos are too clean, too predictable.
Or, I know the words, but I can't recognize them when I hear them.
Because you learned how they look, not how they sound.
So we've laid out the problems, the linguistic and cognitive challenges. Where do we even start to fix this? Let's pivot to the practical, science-based solutions.
The foundation for everything is structured. Realistic practice. We need daily, consistent exposure to real English. And forget the 2-hour binge session once a week. 15 minutes of structured practice every day is exponentially better.
And we have to ditch passive listening.
Absolutely. Active listening is the game changer. It means you stop the audio, you repeat things that are hard, you write down new expressions, and critically, you imitate the pronunciation.
Which leads directly to the most powerful technique the sources mentioned for this.
Shadowing.
Shadowing. It trains your brain to process sounds faster, adopt native rhythm, and reduce your accent.
It really does.
So walk us through it. How does a learner actually do the shadowing technique properly?
Okay, so you start with a short audio clip. 60 to 120 seconds is perfect. First, you listen once or twice just for general understanding. That's it. Then, and this is the crucial step, you listen again and you repeat immediately, like an echo, while the speaker is still talking.
So you're not waiting for them to finish a sentence?
Not at all. You're talking at almost the same time. You aren't trying to understand or memorize. You are physically trying to match their rhythm, their intonation, those reduced forms, the gonas and wanas.
You're training your mouth and your ears to work together.
As a single unit. Yeah. And you do this for just 10 minutes every day.
That's fascinating because it forces your brain to prioritize the sound before the written word, which is the complete opposite of how most of us learn.
It is. And while you're doing this, you're actively training your brain to accept those reduced forms. Oh, kind of, let me, gotta, watch ya. They become vocabulary in their own right.
Okay. So that's for listening. Now let's talk about the speaking solutions. To cut down on that translation time.
The number one strategy is simple. Think in English.
That sounds overwhelming. It doesn't have to be some deep philosophical monologue, right?
Not at all. You start small. Narrate your actions to yourself. I'm making coffee now. I'm adding the milk. Describe what you see out the window. It forces active recall without the pressure of a conversation.
And you have to actually speak out loud.
Every single day. Language is physical. Your mouth, your tongue, your jaw, they need the exercise.
But to sound fluent quickly and to avoid that painful translation loop, the sources say we have to move beyond just single words and grammar rules.
Yes. We have to focus intensely on learning speaking chunks.
These are like ready-made expressions, templates.
Exactly. They're phrases that native speakers rely on constantly. Things like, here's the thing, or, you know what I mean, or, at the end of the day, or That's a good point.
So these are pre-made modules. You don't have to build the sentence from scratch.
You just insert the template, and your brain is suddenly free to focus on the actual content of your message. It eliminates so much cognitive load.
So then the ultimate training loop becomes what the sources call the listen, repeat, shadow speak system.
Precisely. You listen to a short clip about, say, travel. You shadow it to capture the rhythm. Then immediately after, you speak freely for 2 minutes about your own opinions on travel, trying to use the rhythm and maybe some new chunks you just heard.
And to make sure all this is actually working, you have to record yourself.
You have to. Weekly. Compare your speech week over week. You can monitor your pronunciation, your fillers, your speed. It's the only way to track real progress.
But here's where it gets really interesting. All of these techniques, they're kind of useless if the psychological roadblocks are still there.
The mental game is half the battle. At least
The fear of mistakes, that's the killer.
it is.
We have to remind ourselves that mistakes aren't failures. They're just data points. They show you're trying. They show progress.
Native speakers make mistakes all the time. And you have to ditch the perfectionism and the comparison trap. You can't compare yourself to a native speaker. You could only compare yourself to, well, you yesterday.
I like that. And there's a technique the sources suggest for motivation.
The 5 reasons technique. You write down 5 deep, personal reasons for wanting fluency. Maybe it's for a specific job. Maybe it's to connect with new friends. And you read them every morning. It just refuels your motivation.
That's a great strategy for the days you just don't feel like it. So let's synthesize all this. The sources really boil it all down into a simple daily roadmap, a 20 to 30-minute routine.
It's super effective. Number 1, listen to real, authentic English for 5 to 10 minutes. Content for native speakers, not learners.
Number 2, shadow a native speaker for 5 to 10 minutes. Focus on rhythm and connected speech.
3, speak about a familiar topic for 5 minutes. Self-talk or record yourself.
4, learn 2 or 3 new chunks or expressions, just 2 or 3 minutes.
And finally, 5, spend 2 minutes reviewing your previous mistakes. That's it.
And the tools are all there. Podcasts with transcripts, pronunciation apps like ALSA, speaking exchange partners on HelloTalk. It's all completely within reach.
It just requires 3 things: consistency, realism about how English is actually spoken, and that structured practice with shadowing and tonguing.
You have to ditch the dependency on the written word, embrace the messiness of real speech,
Yeah.
prioritize that active daily practice, and watch that confidence muscle just grow. The deep dive is done.
And as a final thought for you to chew on, we know that learning vocabulary in context is crucial. Learning full phrases like take responsibility for or put effort into is what makes speaking sound natural. We focus a lot today on how to practice the sound with shadowing. But now, consider this. How often during your daily shadowing routine are you consciously pulling out and rehearsing those 3 to 5 word phrases and collocations? Not just single words. Start building your chunk library today. Focus on the patterns, not just the definitions.